Hi, this is the Business Guy. We're talking about equity stripping. That is stripping the equity out of property so when somebody sues you, there won't be anything of value left to take. So we're going to talk about how to do that properly. Now here's how it goes. So somebody wants to sue you. They call an attorney. So what's the first thing that an attorney is going to do? They're going to do an asset search to find out how deep your pockets are. If you have a bunch of real estate out there with a bunch of equity in it, the attorney is going to say, heck, you don't even have to pay me. I'll just get paid from what I get out of this guy or gal. But if they don't see any property because of the privacy strategies we employ, or if the person suing already knows where these assets are, or if the attorney looks and shows the equity has been stripped out of the property, the attorney will either not take the case or will settle for the insurance policy limits. Now, there's a lot of misinformation on the internet about equity stripping, and a lot of people who don't understand how to do it properly. Now, some people say equity stripping works. Oh, it works great. It's incredible. It's an incredible mode of asset protection. And some people say it doesn't work. Well, we're going to show you how to do it properly because when done properly, it works and it's an excellent method as an additional tool in your asset protection arsenal. And if you appreciate this information, please help me out by clicking the like button. And you can also click the subscribe button if you haven't already so that when more updates come out like this, you'll be up to date right away. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at some illustrations. We'll go ahead and take a look at a person with 4 rental properties and a personal residence. Let's say they have $1 million in each of these rental properties for a total of $4 million, and they have $1 million of equity in their personal residence. So we employ 3 levels of protection. The first level is we put each property into a separate land trust for privacy of ownership. That way, when somebody looks in the public records, they don't see your name. Then we have an LLC as the beneficiary of each land trust that owns the property if it's a rental property. And then for the personal residence, we don't involve an LLC because that could kill some of the homeownership tax benefits because rental property and homeownership fall under different sections of the tax code. So now the topic of this video, equity stripping. What we do is we set up an LLC, and typically this is set up offshore. So when we go to step number 2, which we'll talk about, and we need to distribute proceeds from these equity stripping liens to an offshore trust, we can do that more easily. Now, no sane lender nowadays is going to lend equal to or greater than the value of the property. So we need this to be reasonable in the eyes of the court. So the maximum mortgage we will record for equity stripping purposes is 90 to 95% of the value of the property. So for each of the rental properties, let's say we record $900,000 mortgages on each and a $900,000 mortgage on the house. So 900K times 5. So in other words, if it's a $1 million mortgage on the personal residence, for example, we're going to record a mortgage for 90% of the value because a lender's not going to lend 100%. A judge will see right through that. They'll lend maybe a maximum of 90%. So that's where we get, this is $1 million value on this property. We look in Zillow and it's worth $1 million, and the same here, just for simplicity's sake. And so 90% of $1 million is $900,000. Got it? So we're going to record a $900,000 mortgage on your personal residence that's free and clear and is worth $1 million. Now, if it has a mortgage on it, let's say it has a $200,000 mortgage on it, we'll reduce this mortgage amount by the amount of the existing encumbrances. So instead of a $900,000 mortgage, which would over leverage the property, if it already had a $200,000 mortgage on it, we will reduce our equity stripping lien to $700,000. That is 90% of the value of the property is $900,000 minus the existing mortgage of $200,000 in this example leaves us a $700,000 maximum equity stripping mortgage on the property. If we're using 90% as the maximum liens that we'll put against these properties so that it will more likely pass the judge's legal sniff test. So you say, yeah, but where does the $900,000 in cash come from? Well, we never said there was $900,000 in cash because these are not mortgages that you pull cash out of initially. These are equity line of credit mortgages. Now, who owns this LLC over here? Well, initially you do. You own the LLC until we need to go to step number 2. So what the public sees is there's a mortgage on the property and it's mortgaged to the hilt. So the 4 rental properties in your personal residence are mortgaged up to 90% of the value. That doesn't leave much, if any, after selling, after court costs, seizure, sales commissions, and closing costs for your opponent to make any money. It makes it not worth taking the properties from you. So you say, yeah, but when a judge sees that you own the LLC and there's no money that really changed hands, he's going to think it's a sham and invalidate the mortgage. And that's right, if we stop there, but we're not going to stop there. So hold your horses for a little bit and I'll explain how we deal with that. Now, let's talk about business equipment. Somebody owns stock in a privately held company, not a publicly traded company you can buy through a stockbroker, but it's their corporation. They operate their their business through. Maybe they have some equipment in a building they lease, maybe some pickup trucks, maybe some equipment. What do we do there? Well, what we do there, instead of a mortgage with personal property, we use a UCC1 lien. That's how you lien personal property. And we record UCC1 liens against all these assets. Let's say all these assets are in this privately held corporation that you own. We won't need to lien, and this privately held corporation, ABC Construction, already owns all of this equipment. Well, you wouldn't need to put a lien against everything. You simply put a lien against the corporation and all of its assets. And when you do that, all means all according to the eyes of the law. So everything on this page, if the corporation owns all of this equipment, is mortgaged or is encumbered to the hilt. Okay, now you ask the question, what happens if the judge says, hey, you own this LLC there, I'm going to invalidate the mortgage? Once your opponent starts sniffing around and asking those kinds of questions, here's what we do. We have a third-party lender who purchases all of these mortgages from your LLC. Now, the proceeds for these purchases go inside of the offshore LLC into an offshore bank account, and the LLC is inside of an offshore asset protection trust. See our videos on Cook Islands Trust for more information. So now you have this money inside of your offshore LLC, and this is not money you can run away with and spend. That would be too risky to the lender. But now the judge sees that your company doesn't own the mortgages anymore. They were purchased over here by this third-party lender, and your LLC received the proceeds. Well, what does this involve? What fees do I have to pay? First of all, we have to set up a Cook Islands LLC for the lender that the lender owns and names. And there's going to be a small interest that you pay up front and annually. And here's how we calculate the interest amount. The interest rates vary. Let's say right now the interest rates are 7%. And of course, this third-party lender is purchasing these mortgages from your LLC, and there's going to be proceeds. Well, the lender is going to pay interest, and they'll pay interest a certain percentage. For example, 1% to 2% less than the amount that you're paying in interest on. For example, 5.5% to 6%. So the spread between the amount that you're paying on the mortgage of 7% and the amount that you're getting paid on your proceeds, in this case 6%, is 1%. So the fee is 1%. So the interest that you pay is just between 1 and 2%, which is the difference between the interest that you're paying on the mortgage and the interest that you're getting paid on the proceeds. So that's a small price to pay, in this case, for protecting $5 million worth of real estate. And let's say there's another $5 million worth of assets here that are encumbered by the UCC1. Same fees apply in this case. So how does the process work once you get the third-party lender involved? Well, you'll sign a promissory note to the new third-party lender, and then we provide an assignment of mortgage or assignment of deed of trust to the new lender, and that's recorded in the public records. And of course, for this to be legitimate and legal and look right in the eyes of the court, we'll have to have an appraisal, and that could be a drive-by appraisal, and we'll have to have a title report, not title insurance, but a title report. So all these things will be in order. And then there's a disclosure document to sign, so you have full disclosure. So that way things are done officially and properly, and it looks right in the eyes of the court. So that's what we do if you get a really mean litigant and they're willing to go the extra mile. We have the third-party lender who purchases these liens and then puts the proceeds from these mortgages into an international asset protection trust. Typically, the money will go to the offshore LLC, and the offshore LLC is inside the trust. So in that case, the original equity lines of credit that are recorded against these properties are now monetized. Okay, now somebody purchases these mortgages and they put the proceeds from these mortgages into your international LLC, which is in your asset protection trust. You can watch our offshore trust video, our Cook Islands trust video. So in this case, you have our offshore trustee/law firm step in to protect you, and the local courts don't have jurisdiction over our law firm in the Cook Islands. So our offshore trustee works on your behalf to protect your liquid assets, including the proceeds from the distribution of the equity strip and the purchase of the mortgages from your own LLC. So to be clear, the Cook Islands Trust, your offshore LLC, and the third-party lender is the missing piece of the puzzle that gives this equity stripping strategy the teeth that it needs to survive a court challenge. I've been in the business for 33 years. We have the largest asset protection company in the nation, Asset Protection Planners. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and contact us if you need this type of asset protection. It would really help me out if you click the like button, subscribe so you can see the next video, and I appreciate you joining in today. We'll see you next time. This is The Business Guy.